Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. Today is Tuesday, April the 12th, 2022. I am Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach, and we are finally here. It is the NBA playoffs. We have the play-in games here the next 3 days, and then we get into the real action this weekend. But we're fired up. We are very, very excited here at Coach Talk. The last 2 years, we have a documented 72% winning percentage in the NBA playoffs. We made both of our runs, real hot runs the last 2 years in the NBA playoffs. So we are planning on making it a third, and that is starting today. We also had a fantastic run during the NBA playoffs in Major League Baseball, and good time to check us out for that as well. We'll have a prize picks and breakdown of the NBA games coming out later, and those are provided by Josh Crash Davis. And then our one and only Mike S. joins Mr. Crash for providing lineups to our members. So that's what we have going on today at Coach Talk, but we have to dive into this 2-game NBA play-in slate for this first playoff night of the season. Very exciting here. If you want to join us, go to dfscoachtalk.com. We have a multitude of memberships you can choose from. If you want to just try us out for this play-in time, grab our 3-day pass for $10, and you get all the action in all of our sports, not just the NBA playoffs, for the next 3 days. So we would love to have you. All right. If you're watching this on YouTube, on the way in the door here, click that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and hit the little alarm up in the upper corner. That lets you know when any of our podcasts post. We have all kinds of podcasts posting this week, both for NBA and MLB, DFS, and prize picks, as well as the same for the PGA. So we would love to have you. All right, here we go. First game of the NBA play-in. And if you're not real sure of how this works, the first games tonight are the 7th and 8th seeds. They're just playing a one-game playoff, basically, and the winner becomes the 7th seed and moves on to play the 2 seed when the playoffs begin this weekend. And so in the East, this Cleveland and Brooklyn game, the winner will go on and play Boston in the first round of a full series in the first round of the playoffs. And in the West, it's the Clippers in Minnesota. The winner of that one will go on to play Memphis in a series to start the NBA regular playoffs from there. The losers of these 2 games are put back into the mix with the teams from tomorrow. They'd have to win again and go through that bracket to get the 8th seed then at that point. So we're single games in both of these games. Nobody's going to hold anything back because the winner moves on. They get a break. They don't have to play another round or possibly get eliminated in the next round. So it's going to be pleasant to have some teams that actually are putting everything out on the floor. No crazy lineups or rotations or any of that insane stuff that it's been the last couple of weeks. So very happy that we've got the regular deal. All right, the first game is at 7 p.m. It's the Cleveland Cavaliers at the Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn is favored by 8.5. It's a 228.5 total. So not a big deal because the other game, Clippers in Minnesota, is 230.5. So the totals for the games, you don't have to lean one way or the other. Almost the same, very similar here. Brooklyn in this game, as I mentioned, is an 8.5 point favorite. In the other game, Minnesota is only a 3-point favorite over the Clippers. So slight edge that the game stays closer in the second game, but both spreads being under double digits in a winner take all kind of scenario here. We don't really have to concern ourselves with the spread or the total. Pretty much all things equal here as we look at it. Also wanted to mention, I'm going to break these 2 games down statistically, see who's in and out. And also we'll share some prize picks plays of the day with everyone of my picks and Josh's picks as well. He sent his over here just a short time ago. All right, in this first game, with the 228.5 total, you have a 110 implied total for Cleveland and a 118.5 total for Brooklyn. And again, in comparison to the other game, the Clippers are 113.75 and the T-Wolves 116.75. So not a massive gap between anybody. Brooklyn, slightly the highest, and Cleveland slightly the lowest. But I think you can play these two games just true heads up, the way that they're designed to be. All right, as far as injuries go, we know that Jared Allen is still out. He still has that broken finger that's kept him out for the last 3 weeks. So he is not available. They did mention Ben Simmons is out for this game, but he could be back any game. So there was a write-up yesterday stating that he could be available during the first series of the NBA playoffs. I'm assuming that obviously means if they move on and play Boston in the first round series. I think that the way things are trending and looking, Simmons will get into that mix, but not in this game. So he's out. Seth Curry is probable. I've got him counted in. And like I say, Jared Allen for Cleveland. So you're going to get a pretty strong look at what everybody rolls out there, has been rolling out there. A couple other things to mention as far as during the regular season, Cleveland's pace is only 27. So certainly pace down for Brooklyn. And Brooklyn's is 10th. So as normal, a pace up for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland is still hanging on to 7th for as far as defensive efficiency for the year, and Brooklyn right in the middle of the pack at 15. Although definitely Cleveland, since they lost Allen, and then Mobley had been out for a while too, but he's back and healthy, playing full minutes. But since Allen went down, their defensive rating has slipped. They got as high as 3, and now they're down to 7. So how do we break this game down? Let's look at the Cleveland side first. We've got obviously the number one guy you want to talk about is Darius Garland. He's a pretty healthy 9-6, but he is the majority of their scoring. He's going to be the guy they're depending on. And if they have a chance to win this game at Brooklyn in order to move on and get that 7 seed, they're going to need a big game from Garland. So the fact that, some of these teams have, a couple of other guys to depend on, like the Durant Irving scenario, the Towns, Edwards, Russell situation, Garland is in some senses, the solo act, if you would, to some extent. So he's got to be considered in that aspect of things. They'll throw some strong defense at him, including Bruce Brown and a few other guys that will try to slow him down. But Garland is certainly in consideration for me here. The other guy that I like, though, a lot for Cleveland is Evan Mobley. He has played very solid basketball since Jared Allen went down. His true position is center. They had been playing him at the 4 all season, and he did fine. He's probably going to be Rookie of the Year. I believe he'll win that award, and he deserves it. Not only has he been fantastic, and he's had a few rookie stumbles here and there, but he's been pretty fantastic scoring the ball, rebounding the ball, and then defensively. I mean, defensive real plus minus, he's 7th overall in the NBA in DRPM. That's all positions counted. Now, granted, most of the guys at the top are centers, but the fact that he played that power forward center and had to play some tough power forwards, to be a top 10 defender in the league as a rookie, very, very impressive. And that will come into play as I'm building here. Number one, I think Mobley's a good play because he's only 7'3", and that mid-level price, he's going to get massive minutes. He can stuff the stat sheet everywhere. Drummond's going to have a hard time getting out there, guarding him away from the basket. He can knock down some threes. And I think Mobley's an absolutely fine play. He's going to be in most of my lineups for this game. Hopefully he stays out of foul trouble. He can get in a little foul trouble, but I think he should be good because, Drummond and Claxton are somewhat splitting that center position. And, Drummond's going to get his rebounds, but he's not a true offensive player. So that'll free up Mobley a little bit, from getting into some foul trouble. And then Claxton, on the other hand, more of a finesse player. I think Mobley can outmuscle him a little bit. So it really is a good matchup for Evan. So he's my top play on that side. The other person I'd consider here is Lauri Markkanen. He's only 5'9", but he gets hot. He can definitely heat it up. He'll get some Kevin Durant defense, which certainly isn't what it used to be, but it's still good defense. He's long, lanky. Obviously, he moves his feet very well. So Markkanen, a decent target, but the defensive matchup isn't exactly fantastic. After that, I'm not going to go deeper. I know Caris LeVert will be a fairly decent option for people, but he's up to 6'9". I do think he's more of a third option. But I'm expecting him to get some Bruce Brown defense as well, because they know Caris LeVert can take over a game. You got to remember the revenge narrative here, too. Brooklyn is the team that had Caris LeVert before all of these trades and everything that went on happened. And he was supposed to be one of their, big future pieces. And if you remember the NBA playoffs in the bubble, he was absolutely dominant for the Nets at that point. So, Garland is, like I say, he's a trendy pick because of the narrative, and he has been playing a lot better. I'm just of the belief that Brown is going to split between Garland and LeVert defensively. And at 6'9", it's just a little bit tougher, really, to push the button there. I'm sure Kevin Love will grab, some ownership because at $6K, he's cheap. But, off the bench with, possibly limited minutes, you just never know where he's at, 20 to 25 maybe, isn't quite enough to get it done for me. On the Brooklyn side, it's, easy conversation. Do you want Kyrie? Do you want Durant? Do you have the courage to play both? I don't think this is the spot to play both personally. You've got that 7th ranked defense by Cleveland, even though it's not the same without Allen in there. And they're really, they can get after it defensively. There's no questions. In an elimination game like this, if somewhat of an elimination game, I just think it's hard to go with both guys. Plus, Cleveland plays so slow with that 27th pace. So I would say, make the decision between Irving and Durant. I think you need one of them. With a 2-game slate, I don't see how you avoid both unless you think they're going to somewhat cancel each other out and you want to utilize that salary elsewhere. I will say this, Evan Mobley is, like I said, really strong defensively. Is he going to defend Drummond? More than likely. Markkanen could get some time on Claxton or Drummond, depending who's in there. And maybe they have Mobley try to guard Durant. I don't think that's the case, though, because they don't want to risk Mobley getting in foul trouble. So we'll see, unless Durant is just lighting him up and they need to, rotate somebody else on him. At that point, he might get some of Mobley defense. But I think he goes against Markkanen to start off. And, even though he's 1.3K more than Irving, I still lean towards Durant. I mean, this is the playoffs. It's Kevin stinking Durant here. And, it's hard not to go to him on a 2-game slate because I have him fairly comfortably as the top raw scorer on this entire slate of the 2 games. So this should be a fun one. The secondary pieces for Brooklyn do not make me jump out of my seat at all. The only one that I'll mention, but his price is a little higher than it was, is Bruce Brown at 5.8. We know he gets stocks. That's going to happen. Sometimes he has those games where he gets some alley-oops, he gets some putbacks, he gets, grabs some points in different spots, and he gets to his number. But at 5.8, it's not a slam dunk, but certainly would be the third guy that I'd consider in this game. All right, let's move on to game 2. Before we do that real quickly, if you're watching this on YouTube, this is our big ask, and we're going to do every single NBA playoff game all the way if it goes to game 7 in the championship series, we'll do every one of these podcasts in front of the paywall. What we're looking to do is move up that list on YouTube. And we do that by the algorithm and all of the stuff that goes into it. Views. If you're watching the views, you're making a comment, that means a lot. The subscribe button and the thumbs up, that means a lot as well. So please take a second to do that on the front end, back end. Every NBA playoff podcast, we're going to break down a couple of games like this. So if you want to build your DFS lineup, if you're listening just for prize picks, the breakdown still makes sense. It helps you figure out where the best spots are. And then we're going to give you about 4 plays per day on prize picks, either in the middle or at the end of each of these podcasts as well. So we're trying to do the whole deal here. If you're listening on any of our audio podcast landing spots, take a second, give us a 5-star and a quick little comment. We do a drawing at the end of each month for a free week, all access membership to Coach Talk. So please take a second to do that as well. All right, game 2. It is 9:30 p.m. Eastern. LA Clippers, Minnesota Timberwolves. Minnesota, as I said, a 3-point favorite, 230.5 total. 113.75 implied for the Clippers, 116.75 for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Injuries, again, very few here. In fact, Minnesota has none. They are 100% go. They are ready to hit these playoffs. Finished 10 games over 500. They just gave their coach and all of his assistants long-term deals. So they're locked in with their future there, which is nice for the T-Wolves. They've been such a revolving door since Flip Saunders passed some years back. So it's good to see them on the right track. Happy for T-Wolves fans. Clippers, however, of course, they have Kawhi out. He's been out, doesn't expect to be back for the playoffs, but I'm sure he'll be back ready to go 100% for next season. The only other guy out is Preston, but the other sort of big news here for the Clippers is Luke Kennard left Sunday's game, the final game of the regular season, with a injured hamstring, and that has been bothering him. He's questionable for this game. Not sure he'll be able to suit it up. If he is, it might be limited. So it does shorten that rotation at the shooting guard / small forward spot, maybe a couple of extra minutes for some of those guys. But other than that, everybody is a go. Everybody else is a go for the Clippers. So a couple of things here I will mention. Zubats, a little bit surprising to me. I knew that he had improved as a defender, but sort of following a little bit in the Marc Gasol kind of, not fast feet, can't jump, but gets in position, takes charges. I've noticed this, especially the second half, he's maturing as a defensive player. He's still a very young guy, and he actually finished 16th overall in defensive real plus minus, which is a tremendous feat for him since he was right in the middle of the pack overall, and now to be 16th in the entire NBA in that category shows a great improvement. So what it does for me is it makes me question just slightly, Karl Anthony Towns for 2 reasons. One, I do think Karl Anthony Towns is phenomenal. I think he's a fine play. I don't blame you if you want to play him. But there are 2 things now that I have in looking at this pay-up situation. Number one, he's 10-3, so he's expensive in CAT I'm talking about. But he has 2 running mates that are high-usage guys. Anthony Edwards at 8-3 and an underpriced D'Angelo Russell at 7. So, when you're sharing the ball to some extent, and now on top of that, you have, I guess you have to call him now a plus defender in Ivica Zubac. He's really played good defense this year, and the stats show it. And so that's going to affect things for me a little bit in this scenario. Now, I will say here, Minnesota's the fastest team in the NBA as far as possessions per minutes, and they get up and down the floor, fastest pace. That does help the Clippers guys too. and the Clippers are only 18th, so they're below average. So it is a pace down, as it always is for Minnesota, but pretty substantial pace down. Defensively, also, the Clippers, though they've been missing guys, and Paul George especially, a bunch of the season, they still finished in the top 10 defensively. So shout out to the Clippers staff, their defensive schemes. I mean, to finish 8th in the NBA defensively when they didn't have their two best players for most of the season, one of them didn't play at all, is a great accomplishment. So a little bit tougher D on Minnesota. That's why the spread's only 3. This is a real toss-up game, in my opinion, even though the Clippers have been playing not as well recently. I think that this game is not a mail-in game for anybody involved. So, let's look at the T-Wolves since we've been talking about them first. How do you determine which direction you want to go here? First of all, you have Paul George back, who's an all-NBA defender. So that changes the whole scheme of things. I would assume he's going to check Anthony Edwards for a good portion of this game. He may switch around and play a little bit of D'Angelo too, but I think he'll be on Edwards. So really the underpriced D'Angelo Russell at 7K, I think is tough to pass up because of the savings and because of the defensive matchup. If he has Reggie Jackson on him or someone it depends. We'll see who they're going to rotate. But I think D'Angelo is a really decent play at 7. Patrick Beverley at 5.2, he's a defensive player, but he also gets some stocks, can get some buckets, and his price is always cheap, and he does show up for the big games. And being a playoff game, I fully expect him to come out and really get after it. So I think Pat Bev is a good alternative if you want to pivot from D'Angelo Russell, or there are possibilities at times that you could use both of these guys. Edwards at 8.3, a little costly. I mean, he can break a slate. I'll be the first to say it, but he also can be very underwhelming at that 8.3 tag. So you got to be either in or out on him. I think I'm going to be out on him this first game, but he is definitely dangerous. There's no question about it. And like I said, I think based on all the info I said before, probably not going to be the cat buy-up for me. The buy-up that I think is just a no-brainer in this game, and he'll probably be one of the highest-owned players on this 2-game slate, is Paul George. He's 9.9, which is underpriced. He's their go-to man for the first option, second option, and third option. So it's all about Paul George. I don't think you can be without him here. I have him as the second highest projected points guy on this slate, raw points. So I think that's a no-brainer for me. I like the fact that it's a pace up game to the top pace in the league. More possessions for George, the better. The second pick, though, is, do you go with another Clipper? Because there's been there's a big drop-off after George. Reggie Jackson has been the most unpredictable player the second half of the season. He's had some good games and he's had a bunch of horrible games and then a little in between. So super risky, but he's only 6'6". He's going to play monster minutes. Certainly a possibility. Really, the guy I like second best, though, is Norman Powell. He's only 5'4". He's an explosive player. He's not going to start, and more than likely, we'll see. Maybe he will. But as of now, I have him as the first guy off the bench, so that'll deter some of his ownership. I think he's a sneaky play here. I really do. I'm not as fired up to go for any of the other secondary guys like Morris, Batum, Mann, if Kennard plays, Coffee, Covington. No, those guys just aren't going to cut it for me. I will say Zubats is a consideration for me. You have Mobley, power forward eligible, so you don't have to use that spot. Zubats may get that second spot for me. Now, could he get in foul trouble against Cat? An absolute risk. There's no question. Zubats is not one that's going to play 38, 40 minutes. It's never going to happen. But he's been consistent. He's been a steady guy, and he's also had some really good ceiling games the second half. And as I mentioned, his maturation as a top defensive player now, getting towards that anyway, he's going to get minutes because they need him in there to defend Cat. So Zubats would be a second consideration for me there. All right, that is the breakdown of the two games to give you a good, strong look at how you want to build this two-game slate DFS-wise. Now from the prize pick side, it's really funny today because we went the entire regular season of doing prize picks. We did prize picks the second half of the NBA season. And Crash and I never came upon picking the same person in the same category. We've always been able to dodge each other. And we never had shared our picks prior to doing the podcast because we didn't want to affect each other's choice and wanted to just, lay it out there and let you hear it firsthand. Well, Crash sent me his picks this morning. I already had my picks done. And believe it or not, game one of the NBA playoffs, we have one of the same picks. So obviously, I guess that will be our number one pick of the day. But I will give you my second, or let me give you Crash's second play. His second best bet is KD over 31.5 real points. So Josh's second best pick is over 31.5 real points for Mr. Durant. For me, my second pick, and I had it on here. What did I do with it? It is, I'm going to find it. I'm going to call it back up, make sure that the line didn't change since we're doing this live and making sure we have the right choice. Where are we? Because it was between a couple of guys here. I think I really like, for a two-game slate, there are a lot of good plays here. And mine is going to be fantasy score. And it is, where is he? I'm going to find the updated number, make sure it is correct. There it is. It is fantasy score 48, Paul George. I have him as 51.5. So Paul George, fantasy score 48 over is my second choice. The first choice for both Crash and I is over Ivica Zubats, 9.5 real points. That's it. If he gets to 10, we have a winner. It seems low. Does it seem like a sucker play? I don't think. I think it's just a number that's under. I think that line might move as the day goes on. So if you can lock it in at 9.5 over Zubats total points in this game, I would do it because I think it's going to move to 10. But we both like that play as our number one play of the day, and we'll be releasing that also online on Twitter. We're at DFS Coach Talk, by the way. Josh is at JP Davis 1982, and I am at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. We'll be releasing that there as well with our partners, Fortune 5. Those guys are getting it going and ready and dialed up for the NBA playoffs as well. So that is it. Those are our picks of the day, both in prize picks. That's our breakdown DFS-wise. And we would love to have you join us throughout these NBA playoffs. I'll be here every single day throughout the entire run, and Crash will be joining me from time to time. Deb's going to be joining me. She's not here today. She's usually with me on Tuesdays and Sundays. She's in Mexico sunning her buns, as they say. So I hope they're having a great time down there, she and her husband, and we wish them safe travels and a great trip. She'll definitely be back with me on Sunday to break them down. So that is the story, my friends. Enjoy your first day of the NBA playoffs. Enjoy the Major League Baseball today. We have some good coverage for PGA coming this week as well. So check us out, dfscoachtalk.com. We'd love to have you. Have an absolutely fantastic Tuesday, and we're going to make this run in the NBA playoffs. So catch the fire now. Get on the way up as we get to the mountaintop here in the NBA playoffs. So have a great one. Thanks again for listening in, and we'll certainly be back with you again tomorrow when we look to crush it in the NBA playoffs for DFS and prize picks.